with Christian ethics. It's when you get into prescriptions that we start having troubles. So, for instance, I know you're infamous for this, right? But the have sex with 50 women thing, right?
Yeah.
Just so I make sure I don't get this position wrong, but I can give you like a counter example of what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure.
Can you lay your position on that out?
Why?
Yeah.
Okay, so we would agree, right, that the dating marketplace has changed.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Women have changed, right? They think they're equal to you, the egalitarian thing that we talked about before. So since the dating marketplace has changed significantly and women have more sexual experience now than ever before because they think they're men and they can have sex and have relationships just like men, etc., and be promiscuous and not deal with the same ramifications. What guys have to do is kind of go in and understand how women operate in today's day and age. And I think a good way to do that, right? Obviously, there's a multitude of ways, but one way to do it is obviously to have experience so that you're not getting into a relationship or a situation with a woman and you're not aware of her nature and you don't know how to deal with it. I kind of like to use the analogy all the time. If you know you got a boxing match, right, in 5 years, right, with a very good and skilled opponent, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to play video games the whole time, or are you going to train and get ready for the biggest fight of your life, which I look at as marriage? Because
So it makes you worldly. Makes you worldly.
Yes.
Right? And
Yeah.
I think we don't disagree that that's true.
Yeah,
The Christian ethics pushback to this would
of
be,
course.
but wait, you want this is a requirement or something which is helpful to make you a high value man.
Yeah.
Well, this in turn would give this hoe value.
But I don't determine a guy's high valueness from having sex with a lot of girls. I think a man being deemed as high status or high value is from his effort and his merit that he develops on his own, and then the women are byproducts.
But he has experience now, and experience is going to help him be high value, right?
I wouldn't attribute him being, because there's guys that are high value that don't get girls. Like I wouldn't say like they're successful, they're smart, they're ambitious, etc. But they don't get girls.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they don't go out enough. Maybe they don't care to.
Oh, right. But
Yeah,
they're more likely to get them if they want them, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're in a better position.
Yeah.
They're because it's a byproduct. But my thing is your value as a man is not attributed to the amount of girls that you have sex with. I just think it allows you to be a better test of character. You're better able to assess the character of women when you've dealt with them before, so that you don't get finessed out of the value that you created.
But wouldn't the entailment of that be that you're high value? Like the entailment of I have X amount of experience that helps me with my value. Like that's going to be a portion of that. And so kind of the rebuttal that we would have is we would say, okay, maybe
I just don't attribute like a man's sexual experience to him being high value. I think it helps him with assessing a
partner.
A partner.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. But him being high value is completely independent of having sex with a lot of girls. I think the women are a byproduct of his success.
Okay, so he is successful.
Yeah.
It's easier for him to get these chicks.
Yes.
Right.
And I think if he's going to go ahead and partake in women, he should have some experience, is what I think.
Gotcha.
Especially when he's higher value and he has a lot to lose. But I'm not going to sit. If I take two guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
One guy is making, one guy is wildly successful, etc., and another guy's wildly successful. One has a partner count of 1,000, the other one has a partner count of 0. To me, they're still both high value. Just one chose to use his value to attract way more women than the other.
But would you make it a prescription then? Would you tell men you should do this? It's good for you to do this.
I think if you're going to go and be marriage-minded and try to find a girl to take seriously, you should have some experience.
Then that has to add to the value.
I don't think so, man.
I don't see how. If you're saying if you want this thing, and this thing is to get married to a high-value woman, right? To somebody who you consider to be virtuous and good and this type of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're saying that having sex with a multitude of partners is then going to up your chances of being able to do this thing, to accomplish this thing, then I don't see how it's not attributing to the value.
I completely... a man's value in him having sex, they're independent to me.
Okay.
I look at, like, you can be a virgin as a guy and still be a high-value dude, is how I look at it. I think the women are just a byproduct of your value.
But it is a prescription that you would make?
If you're... your prescription as far as, the 50 girls.
Yeah.
Yes, but you can be high value and not take that prescription.
Right,
is my
but
point.
you must see some value then in prescribing it.
More, and the value is from protecting your value. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So like,
that totally makes sense.
The value, the value is you
but that's why I
protecting your
think if you're
value, but you don't need the women for that value.
Right, but I think that here's the entailment.
Yeah, sure.
So if you're prescribing, have sex with 50 women, okay? This is your prescription and the prescription has value. Then whatever the hoes are that they're sleeping with, that's an entailment. So the hoe has to have value.
Not necessarily.
Well, you could call them like pawns.
I mean, they would be necessary for you to sleep with 50 women, right?
No, because not necessarily, because what ends up happening, because a lot of the girls, let's be honest, they'll be bimbos, stupid chicks, idiots, morons, lower status women.
But
maybe.
necessary for you to sleep with so that you can, right?
I mean,
so that
if you can
follow
get
that
by,
prescription.
if you can get by, right, with less, sure. But I think a decent barometer is 50 in today's day and age, because it will put you in a position where you'll experience a multitude of different girls with different personality types, different behaviors, different red flags, different green flags, etc. So you'll have a general rubric of like, okay, these girls that go to the club all the time probably aren't good. I've dealt with like 3 of them now. Okay, these girls that go to that are from a sorority and maybe not so good. So like you kind of have an idea of like, all right, this is you get a generality of things.
Well, so to like the olive branch, the meeting you halfway. I would not say for a second that the more sexual experience you have and the more worldly you are, that you're not going to have experience in dealing with worldly women. There's no doubt. Or women who aren't worldly. You're still going to have experience in both. All I'm saying is that I think it's a logical entailment to say, I'm going to prescribe that you go sleep with, let's just say it's 20, right? It doesn't even have to be 50, 15, 10, 5. It doesn't matter. You and I both know the types of women those guys are going to be sleeping with are going to be easy women. And they're going to be low-value women. They're basically going to be hoes. So if that's the case, that the hoes are who they're going to be sleeping with, then we have now entailed that hoes have to have value, or else you couldn't sleep with them.
I think it's kind of
I mean, I think all women have inherent value, though, even hoes.
Yeah,
Because
that's what I'm saying, though. You're saying they're valuable.
Because like all females have some type of value because they're women. But as far as like attributing that value to yourself and taking her serious, I think that's a different thing. So you got to figure out which ones are, worth a relationship and which ones aren't. And I think the way to do that is through, obviously,
Now,
experiencing
from
them.
our view, from the Christian ethicist view,
Sure.
they have no value. They only have human value.
Okay.
But they do not have, I would consider them at the lowest end of the...
If they're not virgins, like what
of the value hierarchy. Women who are very promiscuous and they see sex as a tool or as a utility or as a manipulation device or things like this. Instantly, the Christian ethicist is going to look at this and say, this is completely sinful, needs to stop, you're totally valueless.
Yeah, fair.
Right? Your humanity is still very valuable. You as a person still very valuable. Your salvation is really important to us.
Yeah.
But this type of sinful behavior from our perspective is completely degrading to society, and we need to stop it by almost any means necessary, because what ends up happening, it's like an enclosed system. What ends up happening from my perspective is that degeneracy leads to degeneracy, leads to degeneracy, leads to degeneracy.
Okay.
And there never seems to be a pull back. It's always a push forward. I mean, we're talking about shit now. You guys couldn't even imagine what we're talking about now with like trans furries and all this different stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You couldn't have even fathomed that.
That's a new one.
Could you have even fathomed that we would be talking about child genital mutilation? I mean, who would ever have envisioned that this would be the world we live in?
Yeah, it's crazy.
But if you back it up, if you look at kind of the slippery slope argument, quote unquote, that started with an LGBTQ push for equality, and once they have it, you have nothing else to complain about. You have to move the goalpost to the next victim group. Then you have to move the goalpost to the next victim group. And it becomes more and more and more absurd. And that's why you'll see the pendulum eventually is going to swing back the other way by necessity.
If I may, we're not arguing on I want to say religious standpoint. It's more of a logical standpoint.
Sure.
Let's be honest here. You yourself, if you weren't versed in women, you can choose for yourself the wife you have today, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So on some level, we do need to have women as, I won't say pawns, 'cause I said pawns earlier, that's kind of wrong. I would say an experience booster to understand what I really want in my life or what I actually need. So I think on some level, you still need to have that like experience as a man, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see your the Christian viewpoint, and I think all religions pretty much have, whether it's Islam, Judaism, Christianity, they're all pretty much, like sexual degeneracy. It's not in our best interest here from a religious standpoint, which I completely understand. That's why I'm when I dispense this advice, it's more from a